Okay, here we go. This is about wa and ga. Okay, and I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. We're not going to get into much detail. I'm not going to go blah 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 on and on. Hopefully, I might, just because that's what I do. That's what I'm good at. But so anyway, so basically, I think people talk way too much about wa and ga. For someone who's a beginner, and that's mostly what the videos that I'm making right now are, you know, pointed towards. That doesn't make any sense in English, but you understand what I mean. So we're not going to go into a big deal about all that stuff. I mean, if you're trying to understand, if you already understand Japanese and you're trying to understand linguistically Japanese, theoretically Japanese, then that's fine. I mean, to go on and on and on about what the difference between wa and ga. But if you're just trying to learn to speak it for whatever reason, you want to live there, if you like into the popular culture like manga and that sort of stuff, you know, if you whatever, I don't know, you want to make a Japanese girlfriend, whatever, so you need to learn to speak. Or if you like Japanese literature, like me, you know, you like their classics, like, I don't know, you want to read some Natsume Soseki or something like that, then you don't need to worry about that much, okay? So this is, we're just gonna, I mean, there's some basic things that you can learn from anything like this, of the things that we talked about before, especially a dictionary like this. It'll tell you things like don't use wa for WH words, for nani, doko, dare, those sort of things always are followed by ga, okay? Because, and the reason why is, we'll talk about it in just a second here. So let's just talk about this first. You have your basic example that everybody gives you. A wa B desu. A ga B desu. Which one is right? They both are. Both of these are perfectly grammatically correct. And this is where part of the problem comes in, right? Is because either of these will work as a sentence. They're both grammatically correct. The only time you run into issues with these is when you run into context, which is part of the reason why it's difficult to define them. Because even I've had Japanese professors and Japanese people that I know that I've asked, either they have no idea. Well, professors, they'll always give you an answer, but other normal, you know, everyday Japanese people that aren't Japanese professors will give you, they might just tell you, I don't know, whatever. But if you ask them something specific, they can tell you, well, first of all, they can tell you if it sounds weird or not. Some people can only do that, but other people can tell you maybe why and tell you what that suggests. And, you know, Japanese professors will also tell you the same thing. Well, this sounds more appropriate here, this sounds more appropriate there, this is why. But only with specific examples. It's almost impossible to make an all overarching definition because, it's all contextual. Because just like this, they're both grammatically correct. You could say, watashi wa gakusei desu, watashi ga gakusei desu. They're both fine. It just depends on what you're doing. Now, if you're, for example, well, and this is why. Ga is a topic marker, or ga is a subject marker, I'm sorry. In this case, we're talking about the case particle ga. I'm sorry, I forgot to define that. The case particle ga, not the conjunctive particle ga. So what does a case particle do? A case particle tells the, like we said in the introductory video, the Japanese is all about the verb, the final verb especially. So case particles tell you how the words in a sentence relate to that verb, okay? The verb is in control. So ga is telling you how this word relates to this verb. In this case it's the copula, des, or da. It tells you how it relates to this word. Okay, so the A relates to the verb, to the copula, through this ga. And this A is telling you that, well, first of all, des means that this is, right? This B, whatever it is, this characteristic exists. And this ga is telling you, well, this is the thing that this des is saying this characteristic exists on, right? Does that make sense? I hope so. So it's the same with a verb too, with any verb. Like imasu. Well, let's get a different one. Like taberu. Watashi wa gohan o taberu. Gohan is rice. Watashi is I, and taberu means to eat, right? So watashi wa gohan o taberu. So that means wo marks the direct object. We'll talk about that later. but that's the thing that I eat is the rice. Okay, so taberu is telling me that the wo is telling me that the rice, the gohan, is related to the action in that it's the thing that the action is done to. Okay, and the ga in that sentence, watashi ga gohan o taberu, is telling me that the ga telling me that watashi is related to the verb in that that is the subject, that is the thing that is doing that verb. In the case of taberu, because it's something you do, ga is telling me that the word that ga has marked is the thing that is doing that verb. Okay? Inu ga taberu, the dog is what is eating. Watashi ga taberu, I am eating. Okay? That's how ga works. Wa is not like that. Wa is a topic marker. And it's important to know this. And in lots of Asian languages, apparently this is the way that it is. At least I know in Chinese, and I've heard in Korean and in Japanese. And topic is important because topic does not always have to be the subject. This is where confusion comes in. Because wa can mark, it can be the subject that's marked, but it doesn't have to be. Okay? So, in this case, it is the subject, but this wa is not a case particle. This wa is not telling me that A is the subject of the copula. It is not telling me that. Okay? There is a subject in here, in between here, that's understood. There's a lot of this in Japanese. If you study classical Japanese, there's even more of this sort of like understood something in there. They'll have there's understood. I don't know if you know the nominalizer koto or mono. There's a lot of those that are not written, but they're understood to be there. Okay, things like that. And this is the way this is. This is telling me, okay, when I say this, watashi wa, if I did this, watashi wa gakusei desu, I'm saying watashi wa, right? And when I say watashi wa, automatically that means now everything that follows this is related to this watashi. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be, direct object, indirect object, verb, or whatever. It can be subject, followed exactly by another subject, object, verb, or subject, verb, or subject, object, indirect object, verb. Okay, so I can have watashi wa and then a whole nother complete different sentence, and that's when you really when people I think a lot get confused by wa because they're like, well, wait, what does wa mean then? What wa means is that all that relates to this. Okay, it's called topic comment structure, and Japanese uses this a lot, as well as Chinese, for anybody that knows Chinese. You say something. And in this case, in Chinese it's a little bit harder because they don't mark it with a particle, so sometimes it's even more confusing. But in Japanese, you mark it with a wa, if you try to study Chinese, you'll be like, wow, thank you Japanese for the wa, because it makes it, the topic like that. It's so easy to spot. It's not confusing at all. So you see this and you say, watashi wa, okay, so this is a topic, and then you're saying, now I'm going to comment on it. Everything after this is a comment on it. Okay? So you could say anything like that. You could say, let me think if I can think of an example. Well, we're not going to waste time doing that. So here is the contextual example. Okay? Say I'm giving an introduction. I standing in front of a bunch of people. I say, whatever, you do your thing, whatever, konnichiwa, or whatever you want to say, whatever is appropriate. And you say, whatever, sashite itadakimasu, or whatever you're doing, right? And you say, watashi wa is going to be the first thing you say, or watakushi, or boku, or wherever you are, whatever is appropriate for the situation. And you're going to say, watashi wa. Now, what that means is, this is the topic of my discourse from this point on. Everything that I'm saying is a comment on this topic. So when you say watashi wa, your name, like watashi wa John desu. So you're saying topic is me. The topic is this person. This person's name is John. You can say watashi wa namae ga John desu. There you go. And that was the missing piece. Did you see that? That was the missing piece in this sentence. Watashi wa, I am the topic of this comment, which is namae ga John desu. Okay, so the namae ga is what's missing from this. There should technically, there could be a ga here. Okay? So you could say, 私は本が大好きです. So that means, as for me, this is the way that they always translate it, but it's saying, the topic is me. Everything that I'm going to say now is me, about me. And that's, books are liked by me. That's because it's a completely independent sentence, but this wa is attached to it. Okay? That's topic comment. I hope that makes a lot of sense to you. If not, yell at me and I'll try and do it again and better. Maybe I'll expand this video because I'm already at 11 minutes. But there's just a couple more things I wanted to say. And I've said this in my other videos. I'm going to say it real short and sweet right now, I promise. I know I said it was going to be short, but I'm talking a lot. Ga, I think a lot of people want to say, and I've read this in the dictionary, some of these dictionaries and grammars and different things like that, and some other people on YouTube and things like that. They say that ga separates. In the Japanese dictionary, they use the word kubetsu. They say 他のものと区別する or something like that. I don't know. Remember exactly what it said. But basically the idea is that when I use using ga, I am separating my subject that it's marked from other subjects. So a contextual example of ga in that case would be somebody comes up to me and says, there's me and 2 other people, or 3 other people, okay, and we're all waiting at the doctor's office. And the nurse comes up to you and says, John-san wa imasu ka? And you could say, watashi ga John desu. Okay? So in that case, what they say for that is, you're saying, it is I who is John and no one else. So you are separating yourself from the other people. But see, I don't think that is what that meaning can be necessarily attributed to the fact that you're using ga. Now, yes, it would sound stupid to use wa in that situation, but wa and ga are completely different things. One is a case particle and one is not. One apparently, according to one of my dictionaries, is an adverbial particle, and classically it was a bound particle, which added emphasis or meaning. It added meaning to a sentence, where case particles did not add meaning. And I think I have to stick with the fact that God doesn't add meaning. I think that is not that because you're using God that it means that. I think that's purely a contextual situation, right? And so God is you use God because you're just marking the fact that you're not adding any emphasis. All you're saying is that I'm John. You're just saying I'm John. John is me. I'm the one I am John, right? And you can, and it implies, because of the situation, you're saying I am John, but nobody else is. But see, you could say that, but that might not necessarily be true. There might be other Johns in there. So, I mean, you don't know. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, but a good way to look at this, and one teacher, Japanese teacher, explained it to me, is, and I only got a minute or so left, ga is neutral. It doesn't carry any meaning. He did it like this. Ga is objective, and wa is subjective. Okay? And in that case, you also need to talk about mo, because we'll talk about mo more, but mo also can mark the subject of a sentence. Okay? And it's inclusive. It includes, it's saying that this A, it's A mo B desu. A is also B, including everything else we've been talking about, or other things that you already know are B. So to things that are understood as B, A is also B. Okay? And so he said this was negative. It's neutral. Not negative, I'm sorry, it's neutral. Ga is neutral. Wa is negative. It's saying, from all the understood things, I'm just saying, all that I'm saying is that A is B. I'm not saying that anything else is B or is not B. I'm just saying everything else, I'm just saying that A is B. Ga is just simply stating, it's neutral, that A is B, and mo is saying A and everything else you know to be B is B. So this is excluding all understood subjects, this is neutral, and this is including all understood subjects. So I hope that makes more sense. If you have any more questions, just let me know.